And this is today's reading. Let the planning begin. Hush, said Gandalf. Let Thorin speak. And this is how Thorin began. Gandalf, dwarves, and Mr. Baggins, we are met together in the house of our friend and fellow conspirator, the most excellent and audacious hobbit. May the hair on his toes never fall out. All praise to his wine and ale. He paused for breath and a polite remark from the hobbit, but the compliments were quite lost on poor Bilbo Baggins, who was wagging his mouth in protest at being called audacious, and worst of all, fellow conspirator. Though no noise came out, he was so flummoxed. So Thorin went on. We are met to discuss our plans, our ways, means, policy, and devices. We shall soon, before the break of day, start on our long journey. A journey from which some of us, or perhaps all of us, except our friend and counselor, the ingenious wizard Gandalf, may never return. It is a solemn moment. Our object is, I take it, well known to us all. To the estimable Mr. Baggins, and perhaps to one or two of the younger dwarves, I think I should be right in naming Keely and Feely. For instance, the exact situation at the moment may require a little brief explanation. This was Thorin's style. He was an important dwarf. If he had been allowed, he would have probably have gone on like this until he was out of breath without telling anyone anything that was not known already. But he was rudely interrupted. Poor Bilbo could bear it no longer. As at may never return, he began to feel a shriek coming up inside, and very soon it burst out like the whistle of an engine coming out of a tunnel. All the dwarves sprang up, knocking over the table. Gandalf struck a blue light at the end of his magic staff, and in its firework glare, the poor little hobbit could be seen kneeling on the hearthrug, shaking like a jelly that was melting. Then he fell flat on the floor and kept calling out, struck by lightning, over and over again. That was all they could get out of him for a long time. So they took him and laid him out of the way on the drawing room sofa with a drink at his elbow, and they went back to their dark business. Excitable little fellow, said Gandalf as they sat down again. Gets queer, funny fits, but he is one of the best, as fierce as a dragon in a pinch. If you've ever seen a dragon in a pinch, you will realize that this is only poetical exaggeration applied to any hobbit, even to old Took's great-granduncle Bolroar, who was so huge for a hobbit that he could ride a horse. He charged the ranks of the goblins at Mount Graham in the Battle of the Greenfields and knocked their king Gulfimbul's head clean off with a wooden club. It sailed 100 yards through the air and went down a rabbit hole. And in this way the battle was won, and the game of golf was invented at the same moment. In the meanwhile, however, Bolroar's gentle descendant was reviving in the drawing room. After a while, and to drink, he crept nervously to the door of the parlor. This is what he heard, Glóin speaking. Humph! Or some snort more or less like that. Will he do you think? It is all very well for Gandalf to talk about this hobbit being fierce, but one shriek like that in a moment of excitement would be enough to wake the dragon and all his relatives and kill the lot of us. I think it sounded more like fright than excitement. In fact, if it had not been for the sign on the door, I should have been sure we had come to the wrong house. As soon as I clapped eyes on the little fellow bobbing and puffing on the mat, I had my doubts. He looks more like a grocer than a burglar. Then Mr. Baggins turned the handle and went in. The Took side had won. He suddenly felt he would go without bed and breakfast to be thought fierce. As for little fellow bobbing on the mat, it almost made him really fierce. Many a times afterward, the Baggins part regretted what he did now, and he said to himself, Bilbo, you were a fool. You walked right in and put your foot in it. Pardon me, he said, if I overheard words that you were saying. I don't pretend to understand what you are talking about or your reference to burglars, but I think I am right in believing, this is what he called being on his dignity, that you think I am no good. I will show you. I have no signs on my door. It was painted a week ago, and I'm quite sure you have come to the wrong house. As soon as I saw your funny faces on the doorstep, I had my doubts. but treat it as the right one. Tell me what you want done, and I will try. If I have to walk from here to the east of east and fight the wereworms in the last desert. I had a great-great-great-granduncle once, Bull Roarer took, and... Yes, but that was long ago, said Glowin. I was talking about you. And I assure you, there is a mark on this door, the usual on the trade, or used to be. Burglar wants a good job, plenty of excitement, and reasonable reward. That's how it usually is read. You can say expert treasure hunter instead of burglar if you like. Some of them do. It's all the same to us. Gandalf told us that there was a man of this sort in these parts looking for a job at once, and that he had arranged for a meeting here this Wednesday tea time. Of course there was a mark, said Gandalf. I put it there myself for very good reasons. You asked me to find the 14th man for your expedition, and I chose Mr. Baggins. Just let anyone say I chose the wrong man or the wrong house, and you can stop at 13 and have all the bad luck you like, or go back to digging coal. He scowled so angrily at Glowin that the dwarf huddled back in his chair, and when Bilbo tried to open his mouth to ask a question, he turned and frowned at him and stuck out his bushy eyebrows, till Bilbo shut his mouth tight with a snap. That's right, said Gandalf. Let's have no more argument. I have chosen Mr. Baggins, and that ought to be enough for all of you. If I say he is a burglar he is, or will be when the time comes. There's a lot more in him than you guess, and a deal more than he has any idea of himself. You may possibly all live to thank me yet. Now, Bilbo, my boy, fetch the lamp and let's have a little light on this. On the table, in the light of a big lamp with a red shade, he spread a piece of parchment like a map. This was made by Thror, your grandfather Thorin, he said in answer to the dwarves' excited questions. It is a plan of the mountain. I don't see that this will help us much, said Thorin disappointedly after a glance. I remember the mountain well enough and the lands about it, and I know where Mirkwood is, and the withered heath, and where the great dragons bred. There's a dragon marked in red on the mountain, said Balin, but it'll be easy enough to find him without that, if ever we arrive there. There is one point you haven't noticed, said the wizard, and that is the secret entrance. You see that rune on the west side, and the hand pointing to it from the other runes. That marks a hidden passage to the lower halls. Look at the map at the beginning of this book, and you will see there are runes. It may have been secret once, said Thorin, but how do we know that it is secret any longer? Old Smaug has lived there long enough now to find out everything there is to know about those caves. He may, but he can't have used it for years and years. Why? Because it is too small. 5 feet high the door, and 3 may walk abreast, say the runes. But Smaug could not creep into a hole that size, not even when he was a young dragon, and certainly not after devouring so many of the dwarves and the men of Dale. It seems like a great big hole to me, squeaked Bilbo, who had no experience of dragons, and only of hobbit holes, and he was getting excited and interested again so that he forgot to keep his mouth shut. He loved maps, and in his hall there hung a large one of the country round with all his favorite walks marked in it in red ink. How could such a large door be kept secret from everybody outside apart from the dragon, he asked. He was only a little hobbit, you must remember. In lots of ways, said Gandalf, but in what way this one has been hidden, we don't know without going to see. From what it says on the map, I should guess that there is a closed door which has been made to look exactly like a side of the mountain. That is the usual dwarves' method. I think that is right, isn't it? Quite right, said Thorin. Also, went on Gandalf, I forgot to mention, with the map went a key. A small and curious key. Here it is, he said, and he handed to Thorin a key with a long barrel and intricate wards made of silver. Keep it safe.